Move on to item 6, approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to go through the minutes? If anything we need to change in there. Mr. Vogler.
Merely semantics. In my comments, as when I was welcomed to the board, I said I lived north of Denio, Nevada. There is no Nevada north of Denio, Nevada. I lived in southeast Oregon, north of Denio, Nevada. Denio, Nevada is like Jackpot or Wendover. It's right on the border. But I did live my entire life in the Great Basin, so the politics are very similar. But I did not live in Nevada at that time. Thank you.
Okay, so that's just a clarification, but not a modification. Got it. Okay. This is an action item.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Howell, seconded by Commissioner Lent to approve the agenda as presented to us. Approve the minutes. Approve the minutes, excuse me, my mistake. Approve the minutes as presented to us. Any further discussion? Everybody understand the motion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Vote. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Move on to number 7, correspondence. Under here, let's see, there was one piece of correspondence that did make it early on in the deal here. Knows a letter by Mr. Tanner, and it was rather talked about hunting bighorn sheep, and that was rather interesting about bighorn sheep in there. And it's basically good history of how the bighorn sheep were almost erased from the Desert National Wildlife Refuge. And also there was, and right in there, the same reasoning is explained rather well by Mr. Tanner in this letter about how the deer were removed from the range as well. That he doesn't mention deer in here, but at the same time, deer population essentially was erased from the sheep range. Sheep were concentrated around, and this is when he was the head of the the Game Bureau chief of Nevada Department of Wildlife. Sheep were concentrated around water. Lions took advantage of available prey. Typical of predator-prey relationships, balance was dynamic. Predator pressure resulted in dynamic sheep population decline, but lions were forced to leave when prey, in this case sheep, became scarce. During the period of time lions were present, however, there was enough sheep to feed them. That was, I think, was sent in reference to some comments Mr. Tanner made about predation control earlier on. Let's see, anybody have any correspondence down here? Nobody. Okay, at the end, Mr. Macbeth.
I'd like to follow up. I did receive a letter from Paul Dixon, Chairman of the County Advisory Board for Clark County, and on the wild horse issue. And here he is. I might have to get a little closer to you, Charlie. Can you hear me now? Is this working? Yeah. Okay. That brought up Commissioner Shrum and I attended a roundtable here at the Bass Pro Shops here in Clark County. Was a very good roundtable. We talked about a lot of issues, but the predominant issue there was wild horses, and I have obviously been very vocal about this issue on this commission, and I know that others have as well, and we have done certain things, but I don't think we're doing enough. I really do think that we need to have a subcommittee that would address this issue on a regular basis and get some kind of a strategy going. There was a lot of good things discussed, and I don't know if our livestock representative would agree to this, but I think this is a problem that we're going to be dealing with, and the number of people in the public that are weighing in on this issue right now, we're outnumbered. We need to get a plan in place to deal with it because what they're talking about is scary. So that's one item. I do have another, I had a series of emails and I went back and forth with members of the department. I'd gotten, we've got a kind of a controversy brewing at the Overton Wildlife Management area with respect to dog training and the potential conflicts that poses with the actual hunting during the hunting season. And so we've got groups of hunters that are being put up against groups of dog trainers, and so there were some emails going back and forth, and we looked at the statutes and the regulations, and I'd like to know how we can respond to this issue. What's the plan? Do we need to get it on the agenda, or what exactly does the department have in mind to deal with this problem and to determine what the priorities are for the projects, not only Overton, but maybe others that might have this issue? Because the way I'm looking at it, I've got two groups of sportsmen that are basically in conflict, and I'd like to, hopefully get in process of something that will resolve this dispute amicably between both of these groups, and rather than just let it fester and we end up with a bigger problem.
Ken Mayer, for the record. Well, I advised Elmer Bull. By the way, Elmer, we promoted Elmer to be the new chief of the Habitat Division. You'll do a fantastic job. I told Elmer that, first of all, the wildlife areas are for wildlife, number one. Number two, they're for support the hunting and fishing programs of the state. And number three, to accommodate any other activities that we can within the concept of providing hunting and fishing and for wildlife. And I asked him to take a look at the wildlife area to see whether there are areas where we can have dog training that won't be in conflict of those two things. And so they're currently looking at that. And I'm hopeful that we're going to find locations where we can have dog training at will, if you will. And then if it's something in the off seasons where they want to have dog training in a different area, that we'd maybe work on a permit system where we can ensure that there won't be user conflicts like this. It's been, the reason we're here is because it's been open and people kind of done their own thing and have staked out, by God, this is what I'm going to do over the years. And I think that now that we have this quote unquote conflict, we need to clearly identify what the management objectives are, where it's reasonable to have these activities. So we're going to be working on a plan for it.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, we had Mr. Lent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have several letters I want to read into the records, and I had a lot of emails on the bear issue with both pro and con, and they were emails, so I assume, I'm not going to read all of those, I'm assuming our secretary will put those into the record because they were emails. This was a letter that was sent directly to me, and that's why I'll put it give it to the secretary, but I'll read it into the record, and I have a couple letters addressed directly to me. Sir, it has been brought to our attention by the Bear League of Truckee, California, that the Nevada Wildlife Commission is considering introducing black bears onto the list of species available for hunting. Although we are Californians, we are very concerned about hunting of these bears and plead with you not to approve of such action. The number of black bears in both our states has been greatly reduced by environmental factors over the years, causing fears of total extinction if hunting is allowed. It is our hope that your commission will consider the possible extinction of this fine animal and reject the idea of allowing hunting black bears in Nevada. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Garfield and Gretchen Thomas, Truckee, California. And I will put that in the record for Suzanne. I had another letter from Assemblyman Clayborne I'd like to read in the record. And it was directed to me. It says, Dear Commissioner Land, as Chairman of the Natural Resource Committee during the 2001 legislative session, I wrote and my committee passed AB 291, an act relating to game tags imposing an additional fee for processing an application for a game tag for the support of programs to control predators and to protect wildlife habitat and provide other matters properly relating thereto. The sole purpose of this bill was to bring back our mule deer by implementing extensive predator control on lions and coyotes. No part of revenue from this bill was to be used by NDOW for any type of salaries, wages, travel, vehicle use, mileage, or other fixed costs such as computers or uniforms. In addition, the intent was to have the Wildlife Commission approve all programs utilizing these fees as stated in NRS 502.253, paragraph 3. Any program developed or wildlife management activity or research conducted to this section must be developed or conducted under the guidance of the Commission pursuant to subsection 2 of NRS 501-181. Let me be perfectly clear, the sole intent of this bill was to put on-the-ground predator projects for the enhancement of our deer because of their declining numbers. I hope this clarifies my intentions for the use of these funds. Sincerely, Jerry D. Clayborne. And I want to read that in the record. And I also want to read, and I'll put this one in the, for Suzanne also. And this is a response to an open meeting law complaint against the Board of Wildlife Commissioners when I was chairman, and by Diane Belding. And basically, I won't read the whole 3 pages of it, but she was complaining about the Heritage Project. The need for the project was not justified. The commission was missing 2 commissioners on the day of voting. Is my opinion, this is a bounty. One of the projects, she said there was a bounty and it was against the law. I feel the way this was handled goes against policy and Nevada revised statutes. I would appreciate if you would look into the matter. The Attorney General responded and said deliberation action by this body must be conducted openly. The propriety of wisdom of action upon any matter within the public's body's jurisdiction or control in a public meeting does not implicate the open meeting law. This office does not have jurisdiction over the decisions made by public bodies as long as they are made in public meetings. The complaint alleges the Board of Wildlife Commissioners was missing 2 commissioners on the day of voting. Under the open meeting law, a public body is appointed, not elected, may meet and take action as long as a quorum of the members are present and majority of those present vote affirmatively on agenda item. Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners had 7 of the 9 members present when it voted on a project 1117. Therefore, it was not in violation of the open meeting law. And in my opinion, this was just another frivolous complaint without merit, and I'll give you a copy for the record. I did, but I wanted to read that one into the record. Also, I had another email, and I'm concerned about this one, and this was by NDOW employees that circulated, and it started with August the 5th, and it went down to several NDOW employees in the Winnemucca office. They were all NDOW employees. And basically, they were talking about this picture of the Ford geyser down there, and some of the comments on here, they said, "Don't let the commission get a hold of this one." That's really embarrassing to me. And hey, gang, thought you would enjoy seeing what came into the Guzzler and the Delmars. And my concern is, you know, we've got employees using state time and email to send to their friends on company time. And to me, that's a misuse of computers, state computers. They're using state email for their personal email people. And I don't know, I talked to, do we have a policy on, or disciplinary action from not using state computers the way they should be? Those are the questions. And then the other question is, you know, where's the cooperation? Where's the transparency? Don't let the commission get a hold of this one. Why? Because we might do something? Yeah, well, we did something. We tried to get Wildlife Service down there to take these lines out, and we will react. But I would think the department would say, let's tell the commission, let's try to get something done, instead of saying, don't let the commission get a hold of this. And that's very disturbing. And are employees forbidden to talk to commissioners? I don't know. But it shows you how anti-predator this department is, or some of the people in the department is, because they don't want us to know about this because we might react to it. And I'm sure everybody's seen it, but the question I have is, they're using company time, and why wouldn't they want to tell us about this, you know? And I'm sure you've seen it.
Just real quickly, you asked about the policy on computer use. The state policy allows state employees to use computers for incidental personal use as long as it doesn't add any expense to the state. And then individual departments can make it, you know, a little tighter, so.
It was just distressing to me to see that.
Ken Mayer, for the record, we've dealt with that issue, and we've counseled our employees about personal use of state computers. You know, and I've talked to the individuals involved in this. That was a tongue-in-cheek. That's the problem with email. That was a tongue-in-cheek comment on their part. I'll tell you, the department employees in the field believe this commission, by and large, has been single-species oriented. That's been predators, predators, predators. We deal with a whole gamut of wildlife management. So that comment was not intended to be an editorial of the feelings of the folks in the field that, oh my goodness, we should keep this from the commission. It was more of a tongue-in-cheek comment, and I told them it was inappropriate. The fact of the matter is that lions and deer and quail and road runners and everything else use springs. I wasn't shocked at all to see that lions are drinking out of one of our drinkers. Anyway, I have addressed the issue that you've raised. I wouldn't take this as a personal commentary on the behalf of all the people in Endow, certainly not that. But I will tell you that because of the focus of the commission, it has been for a number of years now since I've been here, predators is number one, predator program being the number one issue. That was what stimulated that comment.
No, I think our focus has been to bring back our game in any way we can, and predators happen to be one method where we can do it. And I think this commission's been to enhance our game. I have one more item, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, one more item.
One more item. I also got an email from Deputy Director Haskins here, and I had some questions here, and it was basically on one of the heritage projects, and he stated about, and I think we talked about this, some of the data, I think the director, some of the data is available and some that isn't available, and I think he said there's, the first 3 items are available and the rest of this request by the vendors was not available, and I was going to read what's available and what isn't, but I'll just skim through it here. One of the things they said, mule deer recruitment data, historical fawn doe ratio. They had guide harvest data, and they said no data exists, no plausible way of collecting this data, and I don't think that's true. The guide harvest data is available, and this letter I got said they don't have it, and I just, you know.
The contractor's looking for stuff in digital format. They're more than welcome to come down and look in boxes and archive and spend their money and their time and their energy putting that in a database. We're talking about historical stuff here that is ancient, so we have not been able to get that contractor in the office so he can take a look at what we do have available.
Thank you. Go ahead, continue.
But 2 of these items I think are critical looking at them. One is this historical assumption that drive your population models, and the other one is historical raw sampling field data for population estimates by time and methods. And these 2 items are the basis for all the mule deer populations. If you don't have this data, you must be cooking the books, because that's data that's critical, and you need the data that drives the models. And so I would like to have Deputy Director Haskins tell us how they do the calculations for the deer quotas, because as a commissioner, and this is a science-based commission, we want to see the science behind every recommendation you give us. I want to see the aerial flights, the computer models, the assumptions you make, so we can come to a conclusion on it. I think it's very critical that we get that information.
All right, we need to have that be an agenda item.
Yeah, I'd like to put that as an agenda item for some time, okay?
All right, get that to me in writing as agenda item, and then we got Mr. Capurro and then Mr. Macbeth.
Mr. Chairman, to go back to the issue of the Delamar pictures in the email there, what concerned me about it was not the issue of the public employees using it for other than official business, so much as the fact that this photo was taken by a game camera on June 20, I think it was June 29th or June 20th. We were not made aware of this until probably August sometime, far after would have done any good to notify Wildlife Services that there were 3 lions on a drinker. And yes, Director Mayor, I'm not surprised to see a lion on a drinker. But when you see 3 of them together on a drinker, we have a problem, and particularly since one of our transplant plans is to put more sheep back in there. Again, we have indicated in the past that we don't want to just have a buffet for lions.
Need a comment from Dag?
Just to make clear, the commission develops policy and guidelines for the department. You don't control day-to-day operations for the department, so it's not inappropriate that they didn't immediately bring this to the commission's attention, because it is the department's responsibility to handle that. So I just want to make that clear again. The commission sets policy, the department manages wildlife.
Okay. Mr. Macbeth?
With respect to Assemblyman Clayborne's letter that was read in, is there going to be an opportunity to discuss that letter? Would this be the appropriate place? Or I see Assemblyman Clayborne is here.
You know, I'd like to, if I could weigh in on this. I understand that Assemblyman Clayborne was the sponsor of that bill and that he's going to speak today. The problem is the law is that the entire legislature enacts a bill. So the opinion of one legislator, even the sponsor of that bill, does not control the intent of that bill. The rules of statutory construction, the plain language of the bill speaks for itself. And you only go to the legislative history and those kind of background things if it's ambiguous. Okay, so just to make it clear, and I understand that he was the sponsor of the bill and he had a specific intent, but the clear language of the bill itself will control over that intent. And so, so the bottom line is I don't think it's appropriate to debate the contents of the letter.
Okay, wait, a question on the correspondence, hopefully?
Yeah, no, and just those comments. When you do legislative intent, you go back to all the hearings and you look at all the legislative hearings and see if there's any intent in that, and that's where you get the intent of the bill. Is that correct?
That's correct, but there's what's called the ANLV taxi cab case that specifically says the opinion of one legislator, even the sponsor of the bill, can't be taken as the intent of the entire legislature, and the name escapes me, but there's a U.S. Supreme Court case that says the same thing.
And we'll have more on this on item 13.
Okay, so in 13,
that's the
because I do have the backup legislative history for AB 291.
Presentation, discussion, purpose of Assembly Bill 291.
Okay, thank you.
All right, more correspondence. Do we have too many microphones on here? Oh, okay.
Is this an appropriate time to reiterate what Mr. Macbeth said about the wild horses?
Correspondence.
Okay, I'll wait.
Okay. I had a couple pieces of correspondence, if nobody else had any. All right, one is I wrote a letter to Mr. Andrew Klinger, Director of the Department of Administration. I know the department's got a copy because one came back, emailed back for Suzanne. If you could, and you've got the digital copy for the record on that. And briefly, that was referring to the fact that the Wildlife Commission was not able to review the budget before it was submitted, and I believe I went over NRS 501.337 specifically states, prepare in consultation with the Commission the biennial budget of the department consistent with the provision of this title and Chapter 488 of NRS, and submit it to the Commission for its review and recommendation before the budget is submitted to the Chief of the Budget Division of the Department of Administration. That was not done. We'll see where that all falls, but I did write a letter. Also, I did receive a communication, and won't be submitting the full language of this. This is something that came back from the Ethics Commission. But just briefly on that, I learned back in 4th grade that, if a scumbag really wants to talk smack about you, talk about your mama. In this particular case, former Commissioner McNinch filed an ethics complaint against me, came back, credible evidence does not exist to support a finding of just and sufficient cause for the Commission to render an opinion. Therefore, the investigatory panel will not refer these allegations to the Commission for hearing and rendering a decision. Basically, it's done. So, I throw that out there. Anybody further correspondence?